Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the dev server having a look at the PUMA IFV, which is coming to the game for Germany in rank 6 at battle rating 8.3. This is another of many IFVs or light vehicles that have been added to the game recently, even in the German tech tree over the last few years. You know, we have the Marder 1A3, the Marder A1-, the DF105, and also the Weasels. Seems like it's an interesting pattern for the Germans to try and spice up the variety at mid to high tiers that they have. When we have a look at the PUMA itself, it's one of the more advanced vehicles in the game, and some of its features definitely show that. Its main armament is a 30mm MK30-2 ABM cannon. It's right in the center here. It has 400 rounds of ammunition, and it's all in one belt basically, so the feed should be easy for the machine to be able to get everything in. It's also got ridiculously good turret rotation speed and also elevation, so going after stuff such as helicopters or planes is a definite thing that can be done in this machine. Another thing to also note is because it's quite advanced, it has a lot of extra armor modules on top of its standard stuff. And by the way, the gun is two-plane stabilized, which is lovely. So looking at the general armor, you can see it's only 5mm, 4mm, 15 in places, maybe 25, a little bit of you know, composite armor on the sides, so that's gonna, you know, keep a few areas alive. It's got a bit of 60mm bulletproof glass in the back and also some ERA on the side, which will give it some pretty chunky armor. But generally, from the front, its armor isn't the best, but there are multiple layers of it, so you've got to be super careful. You can see it has these composite screens behind the outer armor, which give it a little bit more of a defense. It also has some rolled homogeneous armor in the centers to be able to separate the transmission and engine away from the crew. Which are all in the hull of the machine, by the way. They are not in the turret. There's nothing in the turret apart from ammo. So if you don't detonate that ammo, you're going to waste a shot. But the extra areas of armor is where this thing gets interesting. Normally, vehicles become less protected when it comes to the sides of them. But with the PUMA, technically, it's actually even more protected. So you have the explosive reactive armor with a ton of chemical energy munition defense. You have the outer armor, which gives it a little bit more, the 50mm of it. Then you have these nearer plates, as we talked about before. And then also the fuel tanks, which can eat shells as well. And that is on top of all the slat armor, which is about, meaning that chemical munitions are really going to struggle against this stuff. You can see some of the nearer here when it comes to the vehicle on the front. So that's once again a lot more chemical protection. There's also a bunch on this side as well. It is asymmetrical in the setup when it comes to its armor, but mainly you can understand there's just a ton of it all over the place. In the back is probably the weakest area, or the turret itself is probably the weakest, but once again it's going to be quite hard to kill the vehicle just through the turret itself. So it's quite a chunky machine for an IFV. A lot of the ones that we see added are pretty easy to kill. These ones, or this one, is going to get a lot of weird ricochets and a lot of weird areas where it's going to eat shells, and I feel like it's going to kind of annoy people around the BR of 8.3. At the same time, looking at some of its other options, it does have a commander's optics, which is very nice, with a zoom of 2.0 to 6.0, and also it does actually have an electro-optical active protection system, the MUSS model. Now this actually has a very nice protected sector. It's basically the same size as one of the eyes of the T90 and double the size of the Brennus. I haven't actually tested this, but I'm guessing it works exactly the same as the other ones, where against wired ATGMs or wired stuff like that, it's able to divert them, but against some more advanced tactics it's not able to. But then again, after testing the APSs on the Challenger and the T55, these things seem a lot more RNG than they were previously, so we're going to have a look and see how it works going forward. If this does protect against wire-guided ATGMs, this is very powerful at 8.3, since that's where you see the majority of those types of TOWs and other such missiles, such as like on the IT-1 for example, and even on other vehicles as well. So with a 3-man crew, It means that you have to basically hit the hull to be able to kill them. The easy shot is probably through the driver, but you still have to get through about 3 or 4 layers of armor to be able to kill the gunner and the driver, so it might be a little bit dodgy to do that. And it is a very chunky machine with nothing in the back, because this is where you normally carry the troops. So there's a lot of dead space, so if you are shooting, make sure to shoot in the front half of the vehicle here. When it comes to the modifications, it does get access to APF-SDS for the 30mm. This APF-SDS pens 121, 102 and 70mm respectively, so overall not too shabby. It does also get access to a HEIT round. This is a timed fuse round, weirdly enough, so what you're going to have to do is range find the target, and then it will be set to that distance, and then you'll be able to fire and maybe get some hits in. So normally not too useful when it comes to the grand scheme of things, but you do get a laser rangefinder and a laser warning system, which will help you in this regard. The APF-SDS, though, will be the main round of choice for most people, which is why it's a rank 3 modification. This vehicle does have access to scouting, which is super good. It also gets Gen 2 thermals, not just for the gunner, but also for the commander, which is fantastic for it, and also smoke grenades in the form of 8 of them for the vehicle itself. You can see the 3 on the side of the turret right here, and then you've also got, 4 on the side of the turret, and then 4 on the side of the turret here. So generally, it's going to have good survivability and be able to motor around quite well, because even though it's 43 tons, it does have a 1088 horsepower engine, which does make this thing move quite well. In general, the transmission has 10 gears going forward and a decent amount going reverse as well, so you'll have a decent sense of acceleration as well for the vehicle, and overall it's just looking really fun. Light vehicles in War Thunder have been one of the more favorited ones for me personally over the last few years, and I think this one will be incredibly similar in that regard, because of the fact that it is light and it's just going to motor around and rat-a-tat-a-tat and have a bit of fun. So when I look at this vehicle and I look at generally how it's going to work or how it's going to be, I can actually show you the timed fuse idea just to show you how it works. If you haven't seen it before in game, there's a bunch of vehicles that have it, some of the Chinese ones, also some of the other ones as well. But what you have to do in order to use it, you have to reset the fuse to a certain level, and then it will actually go and set off at that level. So since the fuse is set to 999, it won't actually set off, but then if you set it off to, let's say, I don't know, maybe 451, then it'll actually start exploding in the air at 451. So that's how that type of missile works. And you can see the changing between belts is super quick. Like literally basically a second or two and then you're done. So if you want to take multiple variants, it won't be too hard for you. It'll be quite easy to do. And as I said, Gen 2 thermals, so spotting stuff from far is going to be super easy. Aiming at stuff through the front's not going to be too good, especially against Soviet vehicles, but you'll be able to go around the side and deal with them quite efficiently. The other thing is it does have the commander view. And what's kind of interesting, it does have commander controls as well, so if your gunner gets taken out, you'll still be able to fire the gun. It does have Gen 2 thermals at the same time, and you can see the weird and odd things which is actually modeled into the PUMA on the top here, which is all of this area you can see. So they might want to maybe HDify that because it looks really awkward and weird right now. But it's obviously some extra armor for the turret and all of that good stuff. So with the 30mm, the 30mm itself is a pretty useful gun from each side of the vehicle, and after being able to bring 40 or 400 rounds of it, you're going to be able to do a decent amount of damage, especially with the laser rangefinder. And if you find yourself outmatched, you can always scout, you can always use artillery, you have some ideas that you can bring along to be able to deal with the enemies. You also have pretty good gun depression, so it'll be easy to do that. Hiding this thing is going to be a little bit hard though, since its silhouette is massive, and also it has that electro-optical system on the top, which really is going to give you away, and also the commander's view. But you can see the mobility for such a chunky and wide machine. It's not too bad, just moving around the place. It is actually able to do it at a pretty decent click and a pretty decent canter. So It's not as fast as some of the other vehicles, but it's tracked, so it's going to be useful in all terrain, where some of the wheeled vehicles struggle in areas such as snow and also mud. So for me, I'm happy to see that for it. And I think it'll just be really good against other light vehicles. It'll be pretty decent against mediums, because even if you can't deal with them, you can maybe just take out the barrel, and it won't take too long to do it. You can already see with just a few shots on this T90, we're able to hurt the driver and also red the breach. So, you know, you can always go after guns and barrels and things like that on these machines, and take out tracks to be able to annoy them, and hope that, you know, your allies can come, or if not, you can always just go around the side and take them out. But you can see how big this machine is, comparing it to the T90, which isn't a huge MBT, but you can see, like, the difference in size is pretty nuts. But overall, I'm looking forward to this one, and being a standard tech tree vehicle is really nice to have. I hope that in the future we get more light vehicles that I can throw in lineups, and also I want to see how useful this gun is. When it comes down to it, and how much it's going to be useful to use in general. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Merciless Reaper, Jerry Provolt, Mega Dino King, Professor X1718, Orange Tail, Sakoshi Tiger, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Eugen's Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, Moxie, B. Young, and Derek R., Barine, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.